Vindictive teacher gives a test with the wrong answers, and her students unite to get her fired. A little bit of background first. My 8th grade year of middle school, we had one of our teachers leave at the very beginning of the year to go and teach at another district. So, the school's administration had to find a replacement in very little time, and about 2 weeks into the school year, they hired a teacher I'll call Miss E. Immediately, she gave off a vibe that screamed, "I'm only nice when my boss is in the room." The next few months went by, and the majority of the students who had her as a teacher all agreed that she had no idea how to teach. Nor did she make any effort to show the students some respect. I'm talking daily incidents of her picking on the class, complaining about not getting work done, and then wasting 20 minutes of class time while complaining. Miss E was also the type of teacher to pick favorites and pick on kids she didn't like as much. She absolutely hated me, as I often made it a point to start messing with her during class after realizing what kind of person she really was. Stuff like getting a whole group of people to move their desk an inch forward every few seconds. We also got access to her in-class phone number, which we spent a lot of time calling her on, just to see her reaction. A whole lot of other incidents occurred in that class which would tell some great stories by their own, but I'll keep this short since it's already pretty lengthy. In May of that year, we were finishing a unit on a book and took a test on it. The test was created by Miss E and had a lot of errors in it. Some of the test questions referred to very small details of the book, or contradictory story pieces that made no sense. We got the tests back about a week later, with the highest grade in class being a 70%. This clearly isn't right, so a few of us, a group of about 5 people including me, went to talk to her about it, even showing evidence from the book that some of the questions that were wrong happened to be right, or there were 2 answers, a few other things, and Mrs. E refused to listen to any of us. She told us all to sit down. She got up and went on about how she felt, word for word, personally attacked and undermined, and had something made up about how the 2 points don't matter when our concern was focused on the whole test. Remember how she referenced being personally attacked? Next thing she starts talking about is my personal grade on it, and how I went to her and attacked her about my grade. This went on for a while, mainly back and forth between me and her, for about 2 days in front of the whole class. At times, people would speak up and agree or add something I would say, but in the end it turned out to be a debate between Miss E and I. So, what did we do? After the first day, as soon as I got home, I turned on the computer, opened Gmail and wrote about 4 pages worth of description and complaints to our principal and vice principal. I was brought down to the office the next day where I was given a detention written by Miss E, given for insubordination, intrusive undermining, and disrupting instruction. Total bullcrap. So I told him I wasn't going. He asked me to verify most of the information and elaborate on some of the incidents I'd described. His idea was to have me form a group of all the people involved and have us write a list of complaints and incidents from the class. And if all the info matched up, I'd get off without punishment. As a group of about 10 students, we wrote 17 pages of grievances and evidence that Miss E was clearly not fit for teaching middle school students. The principals read all of it at once, and for the next week of class time, we worked on other classes while the principals interviewed everyone in class, including Miss E. After it was all over, Miss E was required to give a formal apology, where she spouted out some fake tears and a bullcrap written-up apology that ignored the majority of the problems we were actually referring to. My detention was waived, and next year she was no longer teaching in our school district. In short, new teacher had a knack for arguing with students over a test she clearly botched, so we talked to the principal. We received a formal apology and she received unemployment. Was she the jerk, or were we being little craps? Good lord, and that is an unemployment well earned. Look, Miss E, you could have kept that job if you'd just done the bare minimum and tried to avoid being noticed. There's an art to running a job where you have no idea what you're doing. People do it all the time, and I am absolutely certain that there are teachers it applies to as well. And if you don't know what the frick you're doing, for the love of God, don't start kicking up a fuss. Accept the salary, use the materials the former teacher left behind, Google everything, make sure your students don't hate you, and you might make a solid C+ teacher. Use online resources to help make your tests, Keep learning whatever you can when you can, and maybe you'll eventually even be a good one. Don't do what Miss E did. Dad gets fired for bullcrap reasons, plays the long game, ends up in charge, takes the extended family on a cruise. My dad had worked at the same company for almost 30 years before he was abruptly fired for complete bullcrap. He was coordinating an upcoming meeting of people who had to fly in from around the country. One important participant resigned unexpectedly, so Dad cancelled the meeting via email and explained why. Apparently, that counted as improperly communicating privileged information, and he was fired the next day. All this happened a week after Dad's boss retired and was replaced by a new guy who wanted to cut costs. What a coincidence. This was about 10 years ago, near the height of the recession. Dad was in his 50s and hadn't interviewed for a job since the early 1980s. He wasn't sure he'd ever find another job. My mum went back to work at a school to pay the bills, while Dad scraped together what he could doing some crappy online consulting gigs for basically minimum wage. They managed to keep their heads above water, but only barely. Dad was out of work for a year and a half. He finally landed a job at a new company 3 states away from their old home, coincidentally about an hour away from where my wife and I lived, and were expecting Dad's first grandchild. Mum and Dad moved to live about 20 minutes away from us. They paid off the mortgage on their house, so they decided to keep it and rent it out, planning to retire there in a few years. The new company treated Dad very well. Better salary than he had made at old company, good benefits, and respect from his co-workers and superiors. A year later, Mum and Dad were able to buy a second, smaller house near their grandkids. Dad mentioned a few things about his time at old company to his new bosses. Nothing confidential or anything, more like overall strengths and weaknesses. Of course, the story of how he got fired came out as well. It turns out that when you work at a company for over 25 years, you learn a thing or two about how it works, and cutting costs by firing experienced employees can make your company vulnerable. New company started to get very interested. They saw an important business opportunity and also a chance to get revenge on behalf of a valued employee. A couple of years later, new company bought old company. They were both big companies, and mergers of this size take time. But when the dust settled, it was clear that there were redundancies, divisions and products that both companies had, that new company only needed one of. They kept as many of old company's people as they could, and very few lost their jobs. Except, of course, for the people responsible for firing Dad. New company put Dad in charge of the building he used to work in, at old company, and let him choose his employees, both from old and new companies. Dad had to move back to his old state, so the new company helped sell his house in the new state and gave him a moving stipend of several $1,000s. But Mum and Dad were just moving back to their own house. They sold their new house that they had made payments and improvements on for 5 years for a nice profit. With that money plus the moving stipend, they paid off debts, saved for retirement, and took me, my siblings, and our spouses, and the grandkids on a cruise. Since people are asking, I never heard exactly what transpired when the guy who fired Dad got downsized, but lately we got together and I was actually able to just ask him. Dad wouldn't say. Exit interviews are supposed to stay private. I told him about this post with all the names left out that people wanted to know, and he just grinned and said, "That would be improperly communicating privileged information." Yeah, I'd say that's about as satisfying a revenge story as it gets. And the author is absolutely right. If you're going to step on people on your way up the hierarchy, you never know what's going to come back and hurt you later. And it was a very unexpected comeback, I'll bet. Do you think the guy who fired the author's dad stepped into that final interview and had his blood run cold at this ghost from the past come to exact vengeance? Can't say for sure, but it is fun and satisfying to think about. As a guy who got let go of during the pandemic, I do very much envy your dad for being able to find a job during the equally grim employment desert of the recession. Sounds like he had it made after that period of hardship. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mum turned her guest room into a nursery after I told her she'll never meet my child. I'm currently pregnant with my first child, and both my mum and stepdad have been terrible to me and my partner the entire time. Told us we would be unfit parents because we aren't married yet, legitimately screamed at my partner for knocking up their little girl, even though we planned the pregnancy. They'd call him every day and harass him, showing up at his work, trying to convince him to leave me so I'd have no choice but to move back in with them. It got worse as time went on. I finally decided to cut contact with them. Having a child can already be a stressful time, and having them around to make it worse was not something I was okay with. My partner and I have gone through a lot with family drama the past couple of years, and having this baby has been one of the most exciting things for us. If my parents can't be nice to my partner, then they don't get to see our baby. Plus, they're the kind of people who don't wear masks in public and actively choose to be in large gatherings with no social distancing. So them seeing a newborn in 2020 is out of the question. One day I sent my mum a very detailed email of why she wasn't allowed to be a part of my life anymore and will not be seeing her grandchild. To make things even better, I also noted that we'll be moving across the country shortly after she's born to be closer with other family members. So not only is she cut off, but we're literally moving far away and never coming back. She responds by showing up at our house at 11 p.m., screaming outside our door about how it's her baby and she deserves to be there for it. I told her to F off and eventually she leaves. Months go by and she'll text me randomly asking about technical problems with her Wi-Fi router or something and needing help. Little things that don't mean much to me, and I sent her the info she needed. My cousin also had a virtual baby shower and sent my invitation to my mum's house accidentally, so my mum came by to give it to me. Things slowly came to a point where we were fairly amicable with each other, but I still stood my ground about our boundaries and nothing else had changed. She knew this. Then she sent me a video today that blew my mind. She had redecorated her entire guest room to be a nursery. Crib, changing table, $400 worth of newborn baby clothes, toy chest, stroller, a car seat for her car, and the list goes on. In the video, she's in tears saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe my baby is going to be here soon. This is where she'll sleep, where I'll change her little diapers. These will be her toys." Is she psychotic? Her baby? Sleeping and living at her house? What? So I call her up immediately and I reiterate that we're still moving across the country and that she'll have no contact with the baby before that. Her response? "Oh, okay, we'll see about that." I'm genuinely confused. What part of "you'll have no contact with this baby" does she not understand, or things will change in the next few weeks when she's born? Is she planning on stealing her from us? I'm at loss for words. I've been seeing a psychotherapist the past few months, strictly due to the relationship I've had with my mother throughout my life, and all that is documented. My midwife and hospital are also very aware of the situation and the emotional stress I've been going through. So we'll definitely be utilizing this in case she tries to sue us or call CPS. Also, due to the virus, only my partner is allowed to be with me during the birth anyway. We'll be keeping things hush until after we move. We would have moved a few months ago if that was financially possible for us. We also spent a lot of money on my birth center here that's non-refundable. She's due in August and our lease ends in September. We already have everything set up to move and our other family is helping us out. We're just playing the waiting game at this point. My partner is my power of attorney if something happens to me during birth. We're currently in a state that is against grandparents' rights. The only way she'd be able to sue for visitation is if both myself and my partner were deceased. Even after we move, she still cannot file for GPS if she's living in this state. Okay, update. So I gave birth about a week ago at home, and my partner and I are so happy with our new addition. We've been quarantined since the second she was born, and our pediatrician recommended for us to keep the baby home for at least 2 months to keep her safe from the virus. My mum calls me after the birth, crying about how upset she is that I didn't invite her to be present for the birth, and also to congratulate me on giving birth to her baby. Then asks when she can come and see it. My partner and I, along with the consult of a lawyer, agreed that my mother could see her one time through a car window. There would be no touching or holding of any kind, just a simple viewing. I'd told her this and her response was that she would let me know when she's available, then hasn't said a word to me all week afterwards. Which works for me because I didn't really want her to see the baby anyway, we just wanted to give her a chance. This morning I get a voicemail from her asking to go on a resort trip for the weekend. I'm absolutely baffled by this. What's going on in her mind? I don't even know what to say. 1, there's still a pandemic and we're quarantining with the baby. 2, I literally just gave birth a few days ago. 3. We haven't spoken in months and all of a sudden she wants me to go on vacation with her. 4. She's not allowed to see the baby. Even if she just wanted me to go, I'm not leaving my newborn. 5. I'm not going to take the baby away from her father for that long just so my mum can hang out with her. We're set to move as soon as I'm cleared by my midwife. I'm not responding to my mother and I'm starting to think that she's either seriously trying to manipulate me or just isn't right in the head. Probably a mix of both. I gave her a chance to see the baby on my terms and she didn't take it, so that's her loss. Update number 2. I gave my mum one chance to see her only grandchild and she turned it down because it wasn't a good enough offer. A few days ago, I finally get a response from her regarding the one viewing we were going to allow for her and I just had to post about it. Due to the virus, our pediatrician, as we said, recommended that we quarantine the newborn for 2 months. My mum knew this, I told her about it many times. Mum refused to stay home, to get tested, to wear masks, or do anything really. It's her way or the highway in her mind, but not in reality. And boy did she get a wake-up call today. As of recently, I gave her the opportunity to view the baby through a car window. She seemed fine with it and said she'd let me know when she was available. She was abiding by my boundaries? Quite shocking, I know. Then 2 weeks passed and I heard nothing from her. Until this morning, she asked me when she can see her baby and that it's been almost 3 weeks and she hasn't held her. I laugh. I knew this was going to happen. I told her the baby is in quarantine and no one but me and Dad can touch her. That she can see her through a car window or not at all. She responds, I think I'll pass on the window, let me know when I can hold my baby. And I laugh again. This woman won't stop. I'm fed up. My pregnancy hormones are gone, my baby is here, we're moving away in a matter of weeks and she'll never find us. If she thinks she has any power here, she's dead wrong. So I send one last message to her and say, okay, no window then, maybe when she's 18 she'll reach out to you. And blocked. Update number 3. I vaccinated my child and my mother is not happy about it. I currently don't speak to my mother, nor have I for many months now. But somehow she still finds ways to butt into my life and the decisions I make for my child. My husband and I both come from anti-vax families. His side is against it but doesn't shame us for vaccinating our daughter. My mother, however, really has a lot to say about it. Since we both were raised not to believe in science, it's pretty natural for us to be against vaccinating our daughter when she was born. I had a home birth, so it was easy to avoid everything. We'd lie to pediatricians about it and just do what our parents did when we were kids. But since the new vaccine for COVID was released, I started to consider getting it and decided to do some actual research on vaccines as a whole. My husband and I made the decision to get vaccinated as well as getting a schedule started for our 6-month-old baby to catch her up. We went in this morning to get her first shots. Everything went smoothly and so far she seems fine. She's been fussy and sleepier than usual, but the pediatrician said that's normal and will go away in a day or 2. We left feeling proud that we were able to educate ourselves effectively and set our baby up for success. Then I get a call. Oh, it's my grandpa. Or so I thought. I answer and the first thing I hear is, when you wake up and she isn't breathing, you'll be sorry. I can't believe you did this to my little girl. I hang up immediately and start to panic. I eventually traced it back to a family member that's a doctor. I was asking her questions about vaccines and I told her we were going in today. I guess she told my grandpa how excited she was for us and then he told my mum and then boom, end of the world. My mother-in-law found out and seemed supportive given her opinions about vaccines. She's told us, it's your decision and I trust that whatever you do is best for her. So I'm glad we have her to help reassure us a bit. But we've been getting texts and calls from my mum, through my grandpa's phone, absolutely freaking out. Saying that she hopes something happens to the baby so I'll see the consequences of my actions. Also that she's praying for her, whatever that means. Ultimately, we're confident with our decisions and will continue with our schedule. Although, at times, we do question if we made the right decision. I'm sure everything will be fine, but my mother seriously needs to chill out. I know that this is just a drop in a very large bucket, but I can't get over that one comment near the end. The mother hoping something happens to the author's daughter so that she can have the satisfaction of being right. That tells you everything you'd ever need to know. Block that awful woman out of your life like you're already doing and don't let up. I'm glad we got such extensive updates of your situation so that we know that right now you're about as far away and safe from her as you can be, even if she's found a way to electronically communicate. I know that this woman seems nuts enough to eventually fly over and surprise you on your doorstep, but at that point you can surely have rights to refuse entry and then get her done for trespassing, because I can't see any other way to deal with her at this point. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.